The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
I want to give us a couple minutes so that there's a group of people joining us, Dan.
Very good.
Okay.
Sounds good. I'm going to mute myself again. Talk to you then. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, let's start. Welcome to the CIECA Cast. This is Fred Iantorno, Executive Director of CIECA. Today's presentation will provide a summary of the changes and additions to the BMS for Release 2017 R1. Today, Dan Webster will present those changes and additions. Dan is a Senior Architect at Mitchell International, specializing in trading partner integrations. Dan has worked on auto physical damage integrations for over 20 years and enjoyed an insider's view of the collision industry's transition from proprietary communication protocols and data formats to today's more standardized environment. Dan is also co-chair of the Architecture Committee. I want to thank you for spending your time with us today and to our presenter for sharing his insight and expertise with all of us. I will now turn this over to Dan Webster of Mitchell International. Dan?
Thank you, Fred. This is a presentation about the great work the CIECA Architecture Committee has coordinated for the group to make a new release of the Business Message Suite, and I'm going to present it to you today. What's new is going to be previewed with what the BMS is all about. That our standards have the form, and a release is really what we're talking about here. Takes the form of the Business Message Suite itself, which is a Word document specifying the format we use to exchange messages. The code list consists of hundreds of pages of enumerations that the CIECA has agreed upon for the right kind of elements that can be constrained in that way. And then the schemas represent the actual XML schema, XSD files in two forms that can describe the documents and enforce them through a process of validation. I'll be presenting today the BMS changes by functional area, the code table changes by functional area, and the QA improvements beyond the standards. The QA in this case meaning the twice annual get-together CIECA has to go through the work of the previous 6 months and make one of these numbered releases. Our BMS is organized into sections. Has a section 1, welcome and overview. If you've been working with us for enough years, you probably last read that when you got introduced to the group, and although we have to look at it, we even spell checked it this year. Section 2 is the rules and definitions for how we intend that the Business Message Suite be used. Section 3 is the common elements and aggregates that apply to all of the many services and messages that we support. And sections 4 through 19 are the CIECA messages arranged into services. The BMS message sections 4 through 19 are listed here. I would hope that many of you on the call are familiar with these, but it goes from the assignment service and estimate services, which we started with from the EMS days in the late 90s, through disposition, attachment, parts, material, and repair order services, repair status service, authorization service, invoice, statement, and remittance service. The number 12 is the location service, 13 the survey service, 14 the valuation service, 15 the title service, 16 the claim service, 17 the status service, and you see these numbers are talking about the what's very familiar to us on the committee, the things that have come online just in the last couple years, and that's the appointment service. And in this release, glorified in blue here is number 19, the first notice of loss. The section about the messages, each one of these sections that I just listed is organized with a introduction, the functionality or the purpose of why we have that service. And as an example of section 4, we show the paragraph about the aggregates that are not common, but rather shared only among the group of paragraph 4. And then we have request messages filling out paragraph numbers 4.2 through 4.6, and response messages. Actually, they're odd and even. Each request message has a response message, 4.2, 4.3, and 4 to 5, etc. The code list is a spreadsheet that's getting pretty gigantic these days. It starts with an index page containing hyperlinks to each of the tabs after that, and each at the very end is a change log that becomes increasingly important with the changes we make and the number of years we've been in this business. And then in between the index and the change log are the code lists, which, as I referred to earlier, numbers 183 at this point. And we've got a new one in this release. I'm sure you're staying tuned for all the excitement about that. The schemas are, we have 2 copies of the schema, which we call the classic code list and the code extension or strictified schema. And the fundamental difference is the classic code list defines the structure of the XML documents, the aggregates and elements that a message consists of. But when it comes to one of the data types that invokes our master code list, the classic code list doesn't issue validation errors when you don't use the codes that are present in the CIECA master code list. The strictified version, or code extension one, actually makes each of the elements that refer to a CIECA code list a XML enumerated type, and there will be a validation error if your codes the codes you use in your business document aren't among the codes listed on our 183 code list. What we've done to change and make this last release, 2017 R1, combine the work of the first notice of loss committee, the subrogation committee, the title committee, the total loss committee, and as always, the vehicle damage and inventory committee. New one first, the first notice of loss changes. We added an accident contact and fleet company client, 2 new parties. We made policy info repeating, which has not been necessary in all the other years we've been managing CIECA messages. The total loss indicator is optional now, and accident severity is a new element. The VDI committee requested changes that made the claim information optional, to make event information optional, and changed the reference claim number to link 50. And before I leave this, I want to make a comment about one of the changes we make most often to the CIECA standard is to make things that were required to optional, or things that were in there one time to repeating. And this is another great example, something that we bring a new party or application online that needs a longer link to one of the fields we've been supporting for years. But the optional one is really worth talking about, because we structured what everyone believed a estimate looked like when CIECA started in 1994, and that was the claim info, was all about claims, and event info came in at the very beginning of BMS. But what we found in practice is they're not really required by the application or the business case anymore, but only by our schema, meaning many of our members would just put claim info in there to pass validation, and then the claim number they would say not provided or not available, etc. So we're trying to pay more attention, and particularly when we have a new message for a new set of members, we'll just formally make these optional. And in validating existing documents under the old structure, if they're present as they would be all the years they were required, there's no problem. But now we don't have trading partners that need to fill them out just to satisfy our validation. The Subrogation Committee added messages about, or added to their messages, arbitration decision information to the settlement demand exchange message. And then the new section 19, FNOL, added for the messages, all new section and messages, FNL report add for reporting the accident, FNOL report change for requesting additional information, FNOL report change also for responding to requests for information. Fred? And architecture, in the QA meeting, we added owner settlement total to section 3 subrogation, substitution of collateral to section 15 title. And then came the changes to the code tables. So we have 2 new code tables to push that total up, driving conditions and seat position code. And these had some of the most interesting discussions we've had in a while to talk about the driving conditions that might apply, or how you might describe the seat positions in a first notice of loss. And then we discovered that the channel of inspection code page was not referenced by any element, and we deleted it from the code list. So added 2, deleted 1, we're up to 183. The changes to the code list, individual codes that would be, the BMS version is for all committees that know we're doing a new release. We added a new version number for it. VDI wanted to make changes to the inspection description code list. Damage severity was a request of the FNOL committee. Actually, the next 4 are all for the FNOL committee. Document type and subtype for the new messages. Party type, discussed a couple slides ago, and location type. And they're not stopping there. Policy type was also a requested change by FNOL. Property type, unit of measure, and bin source. In the quality assessment QA sessions, the new was the schema testing. We've got changes to the schema test bed. We've got the BATT tool that has been the project since he joined us, Rick Glusick, and it's really a very valuable part of our new process. But he can validate, or the tool, the BATT tool off of his utility belt, can validate multiple instances via batch processing, and you as a CIECA member can avail yourself of the BATT tool via the CIECA website. The CIECA Architecture Committee has for many years, made the transition from the DBase expertise of the EMS days of the last century, and for the last 15 years or more, been experts, if you will, in the extensible markup language XML. And even though our documents say we're technology agnostic, we had started to be all about XML, and that has been changing gradually to where we've got really active JSON committee who has developed a ever better and more usable JSON schema that uses the same specification suite as the BMS XML, and we're continuing with open source development of that and development of an appointment cookbook that is similar to what we've done in implementation guides and Appendix C of the BMS. What we're working on for the next release, 2017 R2, which will be coming this fall, is CER, the Combined Environmental Reporting and Vehicle Diagnostic Scanning, which is what you get out of the new vehicles OBD2 ports. Architecture, my committee that I chair with Kathy, has developing more, or we want to have a fuller set of instances so we can test absolutely everything, and we're getting so much better at that. And Jason is doing much more development. Really looks different every 6 months when we get together. So the wrap up is I want to thank you for keeping abreast of our CIECA standards development, and your work on committee development is both welcomed and appreciated.
Okay, well, thank you, Dan. That was a great presentation. Audience, please join us for our next CIECA casts. Our next CIECA cast will discuss the first notice of loss messages that Dan, they were put into 2017 R1. Join us to learn about a little bit more about it, go into more depth about it with the FNOL reporting, the request for additional information, the non-approval and approval notifications. So you'll be able to take a look at that. Then we'll be talking about our parts providers, and you can see the list as we go down. And don't forget, October 17th, we'll be talking about the JSON schemas, which will be an interesting topic for you. Also, the annual CIECA Symposium will be held on September 18th through the 20th in Cleveland. Go to www.ciecasymposium.com and you'll get more information about that. We have 12 general business track sessions planned and 4 technical track sessions, so there's going to be something for everyone. Thank you for keeping abreast of CIECA developments through our CIECA casts. Our standards are built by volunteers from all industry segments. And for those of you that have contributed to our standards, we thank you. And if you've not been involved and would like to participate, please contact Charlie. As always, the video of this presentation will be available on the CIECA website within 48 hours. Again, thank you, Dan, for the presentation, and thank you, our audience, for participating. Have a great day.